One of the common ways that people modify the contents of a URL, what's returned by the server, is by adding what are called query or get parameters to the URL request. For example, here in our photo sharing application, I might want to return pages of photos instead of just all of the photos in the album, if there are maybe hundreds of them or something. So it would be nice if I could fire up my simple JSON server, and it would be nice if I could just curl-i-x get 8080 albums Italy 2012.json. And then it'd be nice if I could say I want the first page and I want 20 items per page, like that. Now, I'm going to call the URL like that. You see I have to add single quotes here because actually in the command that will put the rest of it in the background and we'll get everything confused. So I will run this, and let's actually correctly put the quote in the right place, like that. Now, you'll see my server has gotten all confused and wonked out. It's now returning unknown resource and everything because my incoming request is now albums like Italy 2012.json with all of this extra junk on the end, and I don't know how to find what I'm looking for there. So what we need to do is we need to modify the server to be able to support query parameters. So I'm going to need to modify the code to be able to parse these. I'm also going to need to be able to remove this junk or this extra stuff here from the URL here in the handle incoming request when I'm sort of trying to pick apart what exactly I got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new module here called URL, which is another built-in module that Node gives us for free. And I'm going to say rec.parsedURL equals url.parse rec.url. And so the cool thing in JavaScript is I can just add new stuff to objects all the time. So I'm just going to add this parsed URL here. Next, I am going to say var core URL equals, well, actually, let me just show you what that looks like. So I'm going to say rec.parsed URL. Okay, so let's kill our server here and fire it up again. And let's actually ask for that same request again. Now, you'll see here that the parsed URL on the request object now has sort of the search parameters, it has the query parameters, and more importantly, it has this key, this full path name here, which is the URL without this extra query parameter stuff on it. It would be neat if there was some way to get these query parameters parsed for us, and it turns out we can if we add the true there, like that. So let's fire that one up again. Let's run the request again. And now you'll see that not only do we have the path name like we did before, but we also have the query parameters fully parsed and ready to go for us as an object, which is awesome. Okay, so let's get that URL. We want the URL to be we used to always just ask for the rec URL, but we really want the URL without the get parameters, which is the rec parsed URL dot. We've deleted it here already. It's the path name. So let's call it core URL equals rec.parsed URL.pathname, like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace rec.url here everywhere with core URL. So I'm always sort of parsing the correct thing. And I also have a rec URL here as well. So I'll say var core URL equals rec.parsed URL.pathname. And let's run that same search replace so that I'll always get the correct album name. So now I definitely have the ability to handle those incoming query parameters. You'll see I do return all the objects. I don't freak out about getting weird junk coming in from it and everything. I can correctly use the parsed URL path name to get the URL, and these query parameters aren't messing me up. So that's the first part of things. The second part that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to actually implement this sort of paging functionality. So let's go for the actual albums itself. We're not going to worry about it. Let's just implement it here in our handle get album function. So handle get album, what we're going to do, we're going to say var page equals parse int, and this is going to be on rec.parsedurl.query.page. And I also want the page size, so let's get that as well. Now, If these are invalid values or these are bogus numbers or something like that, the parsed int is going to set the value to not a number, which we saw in lesson 2. And we can use the is not a number function to see if that's the case or not. So what we'll say is if is not a number page, or page is less than, oopsie, page is less than or equal to 0, let's just say page equals 0. Similarly, if they give us an invalid page size value, let's just say we'll just default to return 250 images per page. I'm pulling that number out of nowhere. Okay? So we'll modify the load album function to know about these. It'll take a page and a page size. And that's kind of all we have to do to set that up. So now we'll go down here to our load album function. We'll take page, page size, and then all we need to do is modify this function that returns the list of photos or files in the album to sort of splice those out. So I'm going to say var photos is equal to its files only, and I'm going to use the splice function now, which does all the hard work for us. And it takes a starting index, which is page times page size, and then it takes we're just going to return that many elements afterwards, which is just page size, like that. Now, instead of returning the file list, I'm just going to return foots or photos. Okay, so basically that's all I need to do to implement paging in my server using the query parameters. So let's hope we type that in correctly, and let's first just make sure the basic functionality works. Yep, if I have, I asked for 20, even though I've only got 9 elements, and this is actually a cool thing about the splice function here. The splice function fails or sort of limits itself almost exactly how you would want it to. It's very intuitive and will do the right thing. Okay, so let's say we want to return 2. You'll see here now that it does correctly limit the number of photos it's returning us, and we get 2 of them. Or we can ask for page 1 with 2 at a time, and now we get 3 and 4. So by using the url.parse here, we are able to sort of dissect and get at all of the contents in the incoming URL and sort of get at the core path name and the query parameters and everything. And then just some very simple parsing and some very simple verification or validation of values here. We can figure out what paging information the user has given us, and then the splicing will do all of the work for us and will only return those elements back to the user. So that's the basics of working with query parameters, and that's actually pretty cool. Next, we'll take a look at actually working with post data.